All right, so now let's look at our color. We want to dial this in so camera 1 matches camera 2. So let's look at Lee's story. Now, Lee, as I'm looking at this right now, it looks a little too warm for me, a little orange. I mean, I shot this and I thought it looked fine on set, but I'm looking at it now and I kind of think, you know, I want this to look a little more natural. It looks a little too warm. So our first phase of color correcting is just that, color correcting. Phase 2 is kind of color grading. That's kind of adding a feel to it. Right now, we just want it to look clean. So what I want to do with Lee's first shot here is we can look at camera 1 and camera 2. They pretty much look exactly the same. The colors feel the same. We have the settings on the cameras were exactly the same. So this part should be easy. It's just going to be going up here in Premiere. So we're using Adobe Premiere, and there's a tab up here. It's the color tab, and it's kind of lays all the windows out for you if you're doing color correcting. We've got our scopes over here. We've got these other, this is the Lumetri built-in color effect tool that we're going to be using. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is just look at the white balance here and adjust the temperature to be a little cooler. Now that's a little too cool, so let's kind of just tone it down a little bit. If you have anything that's white, like we've got this white part of his shirt here, let's see what happens. There you go, that looks pretty good. So that looks good. As far as just, that looks like a natural skin tone. So let's go over here. You can go to these effects controls and I'm going to copy this effect to this shot. And then we're just going to kind of A/B it. Okay, so this shot looks a little brighter. This shot looks a little darker. So I think I'm going to brighten this one up just a touch. Now, how's that look? Looks a little too bright. So a lot of this is just a lot of back and forth. So to test, if you feel like, besides just going back and forth, A/B-ing it there, just playing it back, you can see, okay, these feel fine. So instead of just going through the entire sequence right now, I'm going to put some color grading on it. I'm going to kind of give it a mood, give it a feel to it. So I want Lee's shot to be a lot darker than this. So where are we going to do first? I like to I like to use these color wheels quite a bit. I generally will look at my scope here, and you can see that there's nothing that's full black if you're looking at that. So I'll take the shadows deal here, and I'm going to crank that sucker down to where it's black. Now, another thing I like to do in the color wheels here is I always like to take the shadows, add some blue, and I take the midtones and add some warmth. So here's what this does. This is like, it's going to help it's going to help Lee stand out a little bit more since like blue and orange are kind of opposites. The background and the shadows are blue. When I add some more warmth to the midtones, which is generally going to be in the skin tones, it's going to help pull Lee out even more. So just to pull a little blue into the background, like kind of a blue-greenish is cool, the old film look. And then if you can start just pulling this stuff up to kind of think like, okay, where does his skin still look natural? And that's what you want to do. Now, let me tell you about this little scope right here. This shot will be better if we are looking at a close-up here. This little line right here, this is going to be skin tone. It doesn't matter if you're white or if you're black or you have just all complexions are going to be on this line here. So let me go back and copy this because I kind of liked it, and we can have a closer look at this. So You can look at this and say, well, I can't tell where the heck Lee's skin tone is on this. So I can't either, but I'm going to guess. I think it's this part right here, because his skin's looking a little red, and I see this is off to the red spot. So I'm going to go to my midtones and just try to get it lined up on that. So yeah, that already looks better. If you adjust your shadows, you're going to always have to adjust your midtones. If you adjust your midtones, it's going to affect your shadows. So you got to keep playing with it. When you get your skin tones to somewhere you like, you're going to just have to keep messing with it. Like right now, I could say, well, the background looks a little green, and I don't really want it to look so much green as I do blue. So I'm going to mess with that, and then I got to go mess with the skin tone a little bit. This is looking good, but I also want to say, how's this look on the wide shot? So I'm going to go ahead and delete the previous one I had on there and copy and paste from that tight. So yeah, that's not bad. It might be a little green for the background, and a lot of this is very subjective. This is like, how do you want it to feel? As long as their skin looks natural, you can do whatever you want. Like you can say, I'm going to put a vignette on it, which is actually a good idea. Let's put a vignette on it to help kind of draw the eye back to Lee. We've got these bright lights up on the fireplace here. Adding a little vignette, I usually just crank it all the way at first, and that's a little too heavy. That's a little too produced. So I'm going to back it off just a little bit to where it's just subtle. You want everything to kind of be subtle to where it doesn't look like somebody just put every effect, every setting, just messed with every setting in the color effects panel. You just kind of want it to feel a little natural. So I feel like this is looking pretty good. And the last thing I like to go do is go to the Creative tab, and there's a Sharpen button. And I usually take that up to like 30, just to give it a little crispness. And it doesn't look like someone's put a sharpen filter on it. It just looks a little sharper. And you can kind of A/B stuff back and forth by checking these little boxes to think, is it too much or is it not enough? What can I get away with? How far can I push the sharpen thing before it looks like it's starting to add grain and noise to it? So I think this looks pretty good, especially when it's blown up on a larger screen in your auditorium. The sharpness is going to really stand out. So I do that to all my clips. So I'm liking this. Let's see what this looks like. I'm going to copy this and go back to our close-up, delete that original one, and let's see if it translates as well on the wide as it does to the tight. Okay, this looks pretty good. Now, one thing that's bothering me right now is the cropping, the framing of this. I think I'm jumping from like Lee's eyes are right up here and kind of this top left, top right third, and then his eyes bounce kind of to the middle a little bit. So you got a little bit of latitude when you want to scale stuff up to kind of move it around and reframe it a little bit. So I'm going to bump this up to like 115% and maybe slide him over just a little bit. And let's see how that looks as we're cutting from shot to shot. So that feels a lot better. We've got rid of some of the headroom. His eyes are a little closer, like from shot to shot. Okay, so I think this looks pretty good right now. I tend to give it a pass. I'll go through and I'll do a couple shots and then kind of copy and paste it to the rest of the timeline. And then I'll walk away from it for a little bit. Because when I come back, my eyes are going to be adjusted to something that's the color temperature maybe have changed or something. I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, oh, Lee looks really orange right now. Before I thought it was fine, or maybe there's too much contrast. That feels too produced. I just want it to be a subtle color grade on it. So I'll just redo the color, or I'll take some of the contrast out, add more warmth, desaturate it a little bit, which I tend to always do that. And, you know, the more I'm looking at this, I'll just be like, you know what, if we just take this to 90%, yeah, that's subtle, but I think I like it. I think I like it. Just the color is too much. Also consider this. Even though your color grading and color correction looks great on your screen, what's it going to look like in your auditorium when it's playing on a projector or an LED screen? It's probably going to look a little different. So try to be able to see it in the room before Sunday, because it's probably going to be disappointing when you're sitting there in a Sunday service and you see your footage and it looks like somebody else came and messed with it. So do a lot of back and forth with that. Try to, you know, sometimes the screen can add a lot of red to it, or sometimes the shadows are like, there's no contrast in it. You can see everything in shadows that you couldn't see on the screen, and that's how you liked it. You just got to go a lot of back and forth so that it's going to look exactly how you expected it to look when it's in the room.